Can you miss your destiny? That's a big question to try and answer in a short video, 10 minutes long. We're going to have to go on a journey to look at that. We're going to have to look at possibly what your destiny is and a few other things. And I want to approach this from a way which I think many of us may not have thought of before. So let's get into this. I want to start with a passage in John chapter 4 where Jesus he's sitting at a well and a woman comes and he asks the woman for water and he starts a conversation, and then it's quite a story. But I want to focus on one phrase that he says. He says that God is seeking those who worship him in spirit and truth. That's a powerful key statement. We're going to unpack that. Because the discussion that Jesus begins to have with this woman who's a Samaritan is that who's right, the Jews or the Samaritans? The Jews worship on Mount Zion, their temple is on Mount Zion, and the Samaritans worship on their mountain in their way. And the question is, who's right? And Jesus says something above all of that. He says, no, it's not about which mountain you worship on anymore. The time has come when it's not about that. It's about worshipping God, God seeking those who worship him in spirit and in truth. And that's spirit is the inner nature, the spiritual realm, seeking God who is a spirit, rather than looking at what physically you're doing and physically where you are. It's realizing the core part of you, your spirit, the unseen part of you, is vital. And in truth, that means reality. That means it's not just concept of what is right and wrong. It's reality. In Hebraic thinking, it would be what is solid. What is the rock that you can stand on that's really real and really true and not made up? And that is more powerful than we might first of all realize, because when Moses went up the mountain to be with God, he also wanted all the other people to come up to the mountain to meet with God. If you remember that story, when Moses has led the people out of the wilderness and God appears on the mountain and Moses is going to go up and he invites the people up and they're too frightened. They don't want to go up. So Moses goes up and he spends 40 days in the presence of God. He doesn't have any food with him. He doesn't have any water with him, but he's sustained. And he has this amazing encounter, which we catch glimpses of with God. And then he comes down, and because the other people didn't want to come up with him, but they still want to be connected to God, and God still wants to be connected to them, he brings down the pattern, the plans for a tabernacle, for a tent where they can go to meet with God. Now, that's complex and the details are complex, but the point is, instead of going up to meet the real thing, they get a copy of the real thing, a shadow, which is good because it's a shadow of the real thing. It's good, but it's not the real thing. And Jesus is saying, when Jesus says there's a time coming when we will worship in spirit and truth, in reality, he's saying no longer will we worship with this shadow on Mount Zion or the shadow that you Samaritans worship. You're going to worship the real thing. You're going to come to the real place, the real temple, the real heavenly encounter, and a real encounter with God where there's no gap, where there's no shadow or copy in between. It's actual face-to-face contact. Wow. You see, the shadow brought about this pattern of works where people thought they could impress God, where slowly the idea came into the mindset of the Jews that you have to work to please God, that He's concerned with all these things that you do. And now, doing is important. What we do is important, but it's missing the heart of it here. And that's religious systems. They create doing systems which lead us to God. And that's a copy. That's not the real thing. And those copies tend to activate that within us. The copies are good, but it activates this desire to perform and to do and to achieve. And so often when we're going, what is my destiny? What can I achieve? It's going to be wrapped up with this thing within us that wants to do something for God. Do something, make something of my life. Be significant. It's in what I achieve. When those sort of motives have actually been activated because we operate in a shadow, not the real thing. Now you can compare that to another scripture where Jesus says to the Pharisees who are asking him lots of questions and challenging him and saying, who are you? And he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Here we go. Here's that word truth again. Reality. I am the way, the reality, the solid rock of what is true that you can walk on, and the life. Whoever comes to the Father, he says, must come through me, must come by me. So again, if we join that up, he's saying it's no longer about coming by a shadow, but it's coming to the real thing and by the real way. And by the way, Christ is the real way. He's a living structure rather than a temple, a tent where you can meet, or a ritual you can do. He's personal. He's relational. This is the actual encounter. You've actually encountered the real God and develop a real connection through him. 1 Corinthians 13, Paul says this, if you don't have love, you don't have anything. If you give yourself to sacrifice, you stand up to be martyred, but you're not doing it from love, you've got nothing. Whatever you do, if it's not from love, it's nothing. You can help 1 million people. If it's not from love, then it's nothing. You might think, well, how can you do that and it not be love? Well, you see, we can be focused on whether I'm being loving, whether I'm doing loving things. And that isn't the reality. That's a pattern. It's doing things. You see, here's the key. We don't know on our own what love is, because God is love. And the only way to encounter true love and know what it is to meet the God who is love. And so you have to come through the new and living way and encounter the one who is love. You have to come and worship with spirit and in reality, so you encounter the real one who is love. Now, if you do that, something powerful happens. You start to change, because there's something about our nature. When we're talking about destiny, there's a way that we're made, that what we encounter and engage with and open our heart to changes us, and we become like it. As we gaze, as we look to, as we meet the one who is love, his love starts to transform us. It's like you can't stop it if you're lost in him. If I'm looking at myself, trying to make myself love, that's me in charge. But if I'm lost in the one who is love, increasingly lost in him, then increasingly I'm transformed into his likeness and his love flows through me. Now that affects what I do. Now, when I do things, there's going to be an aspect of it that is pure love, because it's coming from my encounter with God. That means it bears true fruit that lasts. This is no longer me in a hollow way doing things, wondering if it's coming from love. This is me now lost in the one who is love on the inside and doing acts of love from that. So if we go back to the story of the woman at the well and the statement that Jesus makes, that God is seeking those who worship him, who are lost in him, who adore him, who are focused on him, not whether they're worshippers, who are focused on him in spirit and in reality. There is the key to who we are. So can you miss your destiny? Well, our destiny for sure is a journey of meeting him who is love, not achieving things. It won't be by how amazing you've been in what you've achieved that will impress and leave a mark in eternity. It'll be what you do that has flowed from your encounter with him that you've ongoingly had and grown in. God's seeking you for that. He's not just waiting for you to come to him. He's seeking you. Christ came and sought us, and he's seeking you now that you would meet him who is love. That means I have to lay down what I think I know I should do with my life and what love should do and what love is, and go, God, I come to be with you who is love. I'm totally dependent on you. Let your love transform me. And that's enough. That's enough. Because you will taste of love. Oh, and by the way, you will do things from that encounter. You will do things from that loving embrace with him. Worship him in the unseen, deepest part of you, your spirit, and truly encounter him, not a religious copy that empowers your own works of achievement. After all, he's all in all, and who can boast in front of him? He's everything. He's love.